Okay, welcome back to video 5 of the Adobe breakdown, where we look at every aspect of Adobe as a business and try to understand it. In previous videos, we looked at the business model, we looked at the financial statements and the fundamentals, we've looked at the business moat and how they compete in the marketplace. And in the last video, we looked at some of the threats and opportunities that the business is currently facing and how they might manage that. Today, we're going to be looking at maybe the most important thing that you can look at when you're trying to understand a business, and that is the management team and who they are, their track record, the way they think and their background. And ultimately, we need to decide if they are the right people to lead this business and navigate it through the threats and opportunities that we discussed in the last video. Before we get started, this is not financial advice. I'm just sharing my research and my thinking as a CPA and senior financial analyst as I try to understand Adobe and what they are and what they might look like in the future. Lastly, most of this research was done between March and April, when the stock price was between $240 and $220. When you're watching this, not only might that price be different, but the business and underlying environment might also be different. So take that into account as you watch it. Okay, let's jump into it. So the first person to understand is the CEO. I hope I don't mess his name up too badly. Shantanu Narayen. He has been the CEO since 2007, and he's been at Adobe since 1998. Big news, if you haven't heard, he has decided to leave the company and step down and move to a chairman of the board role. This is pretty big news. You know, he's been CEO for almost 20 years. And I think when you're CEO that long, especially at tech companies, because they change so much, Adobe is not the business today that it was when he became CEO. In fact, he was the person who led the transition from single purchase software to software as a service and their cloud business today. Because of that, I think he sort of has like founder light status with so much reputational and decision-making authority that he can use to lead the company and navigate the current AI landscape. For me, it's a big problem that he's leaving, to be totally honest. It's one of the things that worried me most when looking into Adobe here is that not only do we have a bit of a murky picture on what the future might look like, but we don't even know who's replacing him. They haven't announced that. They've decided that they're conducting a full search both internally and externally, but not even having it lined up for who the successor would be is, worrying. It's worrying, right? Like, who's gonna do the hard work here to make sure Adobe succeeds in the AI era? Okay, their CFO is Daniel Dern. He has a background in finance and engineering. He joined in the peak of the pandemic boom, I guess you could say. His background, he was extensively in M&A, I think at Goldman Sachs. And then he was CFO of another company in the semiconductor industry. I'm not gonna try to say Anil's last name, but Anil is the president of customer experience orchestration business. This is like the Experience Cloud and the enterprise component of Adobe. I think he is definitely a consideration for the CEO role going forward. I think it obviously depends on a lot of different factors, but he's really been leading the Experience Cloud and enterprise opportunities of the business. And it does seem like that is where Adobe wants to lean into as an opportunity for AI and them having this agent orchestration business model for marketing departments. So I don't know, it seems like a natural fit. Maybe he'll end up being the guy. His background is in engineering, and he was previously the CEO of Informatica. He led their transition to cloud and to SaaS as well. So, he has similar experience navigating a transitional period for a software company. And then David Wadhwani is the president of their creative cloud business, and he's been with the company since 2020. And he was also the CEO of a company called App Dynamics and led their transition to SaaS. So I don't know if it will be an internal promotion. These two seem most likely, if it is, to replace Shantanu. They are always up on stage with him at investor conferences and stuff like that, talking about how they see the business and their side of things. The one thing I will say, though, is that both of them only joined in 2020. And okay, that's like 6 years, but generally when you have an internal promotion to CEO, you kind of want to see like 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. They spent their whole career there. They have similar reputational capital to the CEO in terms of tenure, and they're able to really step into that role with a lot of support and confidence and leadership that is needed for a position like that, especially at a time when the business is changing so much. And then the last person I'll just touch on is Frank Calderoni. He's actually an independent director. He's not part of the management team, but he's been selected to be the person in charge of selecting the person who becomes CEO after Shantanu. So he's been a director at the business since 2013. He has both a finance and business background. He was an ex-CEO. He's a board member at Palo Alto Networks. And I just thought it was important to include this in the analysis to understand who's even going to be picking the next CEO. And I think just based on the resume, he seems like he's a good fit for that responsibility. So there's not like that much to talk about, I think, because Shantanu is leaving. Like whatever we can say about him doesn't really matter going forward. I think by basically all measures, he has been a good CEO. He led Adobe through its only other existential threat. And at the end of the day, when he took over in 2008, the stock is a lot higher than where it was. Yes, it is down at a time when he's stepping away, but at the end of the day, even this return is pretty impressive, and it's hard to say that he did anything other than be a good steward for the shareholders. I think the tricky thing with this replacement is that the three other key people don't have that tenure that we talked about at Adobe, but obviously an outside CEO appointment also probably wouldn't carry that same weight unless it's some big name. I don't even know who that could be, to be totally honest with you. But I also think they're in like a tough position here. There just doesn't seem to be a natural next person to take on that role. And to be honest with you, it's a little bit worrying that they haven't considered it at all either. It's unclear how long the search is going to take, but realistically, the longer it takes, the worse. So let's actually just have a conversation about that. What are the risks that come with this CEO transition? I think if you compare the transition to Apple, which interestingly enough has also communicated their own CEO transition, they communicated to the market that Tim Cook was leaving, and in the same announcement communicated that John Ternus is going to become Apple CEO next. It's providing a solution before there's even a problem, right? Like, in my opinion, that's the right way to handle a CEO transition, to already have the answer and to not let lingering questions exist in the market, especially at a time when there's a lot of fear. It does make me think that they're leaning towards an external CEO appointment, which almost creates even more questions than answers. But at the end of the day, it is important for them to pick the right person rather than just trying to please the market in the moment with a rash appointment that isn't necessarily best for the company. Still though, it's important that they don't take too long also. They definitely need to have this wrapped up within like 2 quarters, I would say. Otherwise, they're risking a situation where there might be some form of strategic paralysis where they're not able to make major investment decisions that they might have to make to adapt to this new AI landscape. They may not be able to properly negotiate or to sign major partnerships with AI providers like they have just done with Runway, although maybe that leans towards the fact that it's not a big deal. And there might also just be talent recruitment issues with this, right? Like, are key AI researchers or just business operators going to want to join a company without any clear insight into who is going to be their boss? Like, that's a little bit weird, right? Good people have options, and typically they're going to want clarity before committing to a multi-year project that Adobe is going to be in order to get the ship right and capture a lot of the opportunity that AI poses. And then in terms of my opinion, I think that you'd want someone that is relatively young like John Ternus is. I think he's in his 50s, and getting the appointment right can really set the company up for the next 20 years of success. Whereas getting the appointment wrong could lead to several years or a decade of continual CEO rollover where they just can't get the right person. So it is a really important decision to get right. What I would want to see in like the ideal person is someone with operational excellence and an operations background so that they can get the business through this period. I would want to see a strong capital allocation track record. I don't want someone who's going to go in and make a whole bunch of acquisitions. I just want someone that I feel comfortable is not going to just go crazy and make a whole bunch of weird decisions that bring more risk to the table. I'd also probably want someone who has a reputation in the software industry, probably already has existing relationships with customers of Adobe or potential customers of Adobe. And then I don't know who this would be, but someone who has shown like a track record for monetizing AI. I mean, to be honest with you, I think the whole world is still waiting to see if anyone can monetize AI. But if this existed, that would be awesome. Like, that is what we all want to see. So, I mean, this is a really hard few things to get, including getting the age right. Probably we won't get someone with all of these, but I think the more, the better. That was a short one. There's probably less to talk about here just because the CEO is leaving, but it is really important. It might even be the most important question going forward for Adobe and whether or not it's able to survive. I hope you enjoyed it. The last video is the next one. This is where we're going to do a valuation. We're going to take everything we've looked at and tried to understand throughout this entire series and put it together and try to put a price on some different scenarios for the business. If you liked this, please subscribe, please like the video, do all that stuff, and I will see you next time. See ya.